Objection, so ordered.
Last night, the Rules Committee met and reported out a rule providing for consideration of three measures. The rule provides for consideration of H.R. 3617, the Securing America's Critical Minerals Supply Act, under a closed rule, with 1 hour of debate equally divided and controlled by the chair and the ranking minority member of the Committee on Energy and Commerce or their designees, and provides for one motion to recommit. The rule also provides for consideration of H.R. 261, the Undersea Cable Protection Act, under a closed rule, with 1 hour of debate equally divided and controlled by the chair and the ranking minority member of the Committee on Natural Resources or their respective designees, and provides for one motion to recommit. The rule also provides for consideration of H.R. 2189, the Law Enforcement Innovate to De-escalate Act, under a closed rule, with 1 hour of debate equally divided among and controlled by the chair and the ranking minority member of the Committee on the Judiciary or their designees, and the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Ways and Means or their designees, and provides for one motion to recommit. Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of this rule and in support of the underlying legislation. The rule before us once again exposes a fundamental divide in the House. Republicans are focused on protecting American lives, American infrastructure, and American national security. Democrats are focused on protecting bureaucracies, activist pressure campaigns, and the broken systems that they created. For years, Democrats have governed by slogan instead of substance. They talk about safety, but undermine law enforcement. They claim to care about national security, but allow infrastructure critical to that mission of security to decay. And they give lip service to the need to reshore our supply chains while time and again supporting policies and legislation that ensures that America remains dependent on our foreign adversaries. Their opposition to the rule today undermines and underlines the stark contrast between the left's words and their actions, which threaten and undermine our country. Mr. Speaker, the rule provides for consideration of H.R. 2189, the Law Enforcement Innovate to De-escalate Act. Every single day, law enforcement officers are asked to make split-second decisions in dangerous, unpredictable situations. In those moments, officers should have access to every appropriate tool available to de-escalate encounters, protect themselves, and to save the public's lives. Yet standing in their way is outdated federal law. Under current statute, less than lethal devices like tasers are still treated like firearms. That classification no longer reflects modern technology, modern training, or modern policing, and it creates unnecessary barriers for law enforcement agencies across this country. These devices are designed to temporarily incapacitate an individual without causing serious or permanent injury. They play a critical role in real-world law enforcement encounters by giving officers a non-lethal option to defuse potentially violent situations and protect both officers and the public at large. But because these de-escalation tools are misclassified under federal law, the consequences are real. Law enforcement agencies and communities, they face higher costs, procurement delays, and unnecessary regulatory hurdles, including taxes and rules written over 50 years ago that were never intended to apply to modern, less than lethal technology. And at a time when departments are investing in better training, accountability, and modern technology to reduce fatal encounters, access to less than lethal alternatives should be expanding, not shrinking. Federal law should be keeping pace with innovation, not trapping law enforcement in the past. The Law Enforcement Innovate to De-escalate Act updates this outdated framework and acknowledges a simple fact. Law enforcement officers need access to better tools in order to do their job safely and effectively. The bill ensures less than lethal devices are treated for what they are, tools in de-escalation, not firearms. It draws clear lines, focuses on devices designed to incapacitate without causing serious injury, and explicitly prevents any device that would be converted into a lethal weapon from falling under the new definition. Democrats will claim that this bill is dangerous. They always do. But the real danger is forcing our law enforcement officers into a false choice between using deadly force or no force at all. If we are serious about reducing violent encounters and saving lives, we should be focused on giving officers more options to de-escalate situations when seconds matter. Mr. Speaker, the rule also provides for consideration of H.R. 261, the Undersea Cable Protection Act of 2025. This bill is about infrastructure most Americans will never see, but every single one of us rely on them every single day. From sending an email to making a phone call to moving money across the globe, undersea cables are the backbone of the modern world. In fact, undersea cables carry more than 95% of global internet traffic. They support military communications. They move trillions of dollars in financial transactions and keep the global economy functioning. Protecting this infrastructure is not just about speed or convenience. It's about national security. Route diversity matters. When too many cables are forced into the same landing areas, vulnerabilities increase and adversaries take notice. And despite the importance, undersea cables projects face duplicative and unnecessary regulatory hurdles. Even after projects receive all required federal and state approvals, agencies can still demand additional authorizations, slowing installation, maintenance, and repair work that's critical to keeping these systems secure. We see this pattern far too often in Washington. Projects are approved, but delays pile up anyways. Timelines slip, responsibility gets passed around, bureaucracy grows while real-world risks go unaddressed. We saw this same pattern play out in upstate New York. Micron is making a historic investment in bringing advanced semiconductor manufacturing back into the United States, creating thousands of good-paying jobs and strengthening our domestic supply chains, critical to our national security. Yet, even after clearing one of the most stringent state environmental review processes in the country, the project is subjected to duplicative federal reviews that reach the same exact conclusions again and again. Those delays were not about environmental risk. They were bureaucratic duplication, years of lost time before construction can even begin. That is not environmental protection, it's regulatory paralysis. And it is the same kind of post-approval delay and second guessing that puts critical projects, including our undersea cable installation, maintenance, and repair at risk, at a time when adversaries are actively probing undersea infrastructure. Washington should be focused on protection, resilience, and readiness, not red tape. That's exactly what the Undersea Cable Protection Act of 2025 does. It prevents agencies from piling new permitting requirements onto projects that have already been reviewed and approved. It allows installation, maintenance, and repair to move forward without unnecessary delay while preserving coordination and oversight. Nothing in this bill weakens environmental laws. Nothing strips oversight and accountability. It simply says that once the government's completed its review, it should not keep finding new ways to slow down critical security infrastructure. If Democrats were serious about national security, we could pass this on suspension. They would support protecting the infrastructure that carries our communications, our commerce, and our defense information. Instead, they will continue to defend a broken process that leaves critical assets exposed and America more vulnerable than it should be. Mr. Speaker, the rule also provides for consideration of H.R. 3617, the Securing America's Critical Mineral Supply Act. Critical minerals are essential to modern life. They are used in defense systems, energy infrastructure, manufacturing, and the advanced technologies that power our economy and keep this country secure. Without reliable access to these materials, everything built on top of them becomes vulnerable. Yet for years, Washington policies have discouraged domestic production and pushed our supply chains overseas. The result was predictable. The United States became dangerously dependent on foreign sources for critical minerals, often controlled by adversarial nations that do not share our interests or our values. And American jobs were lost, and supply chains were weakened, and foreign governments gained leverage over materials our economy and national defense rely on every single day. That is the damage this Congress is now working to reverse. Energy security has been a core national security concern before. After the oil crises of the 70s, Americans learned the hard way what happens when adversaries control the resources our economy depends on. And today we face a similar threat, not just in energy, but across the next generation of industries like artificial intelligence and advanced manufacturing, defense systems that all rely on critical minerals. After decades of degrowth policies that drove energy production, mining, and refining all overseas, our adversaries exploited those vulnerabilities. The result is an economy that leaves American families exposed to decisions made in places like Communist China. We've already seen this play out. Communist China has taken steps to restrict exports of key minerals, including antimony, which is essential to defense manufacturing for systems like radar. That is not a theoretical risk. It's an active leverage being used against the United States today. And under President Trump, the United States has begun to change course by prioritizing domestic production, strengthening supply chain security, and treating critical minerals as a strategic national interest. H.R. 3617, the Securing America's Critical Mineral Supply Act, builds on that effort. It forces the federal government to take a hard look at where America is vulnerable, improves coordination across agencies, and ensures securing critical minerals is treated as a priority, not as an afterthought. The bill strengthens the Department of Energy's role in identifying supply chain risks and supporting responsible domestic production, refining, and processing. So America is not forced to rely on adversaries for materials essential to our economy and to our defense. And let's be clear about what this bill does not do. It does not eliminate environmental review. It does not lower standards. It simply says America should be able to responsibly produce what it needs here at home instead of outsourcing our future to foreign powers. Instead of trying to score political points, Democrats should support efforts to close the supply chain vulnerabilities that Communist China actively exploits to the detriment of the American people. If Democrats were serious about supply chain security and national defense, this is exactly the kind of bill that they would support. Instead, they spent years defending policies that left America exposed. Republicans are choosing strength, security, and self-reliance. Democrats choose dependence and delay. I urge my colleagues to support this rule, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Colorado.